Until I finish this sentence, chances are you're not thinking about whether or not to stay in your chair. And until I finish this sentence, chances are you're not consciously aware that another option you have is to stand up, take off one of your shoes and throw it at me. But it is an option that you have. Every single second of every single day, we face an overwhelming array of choices for what we could do next. As technology and globalization make the world more interconnected, the space of things we could do, of places we could go, of types of shoe we could throw at each other has got bigger and bigger. The world has got bigger for each of us. So of course we don't actually consider every option that we have every single second that we have it. Sure, sometimes we sit down and think carefully, should I take this job? Should I buy this type of car or the other? But a lot of the time, we naturally rely on some basic rules of thumb or heuristics, which get us a pretty decent answer without too much effort. Some heuristics work pretty well, like guessing how much someone likes you by how much they smile at you, or trying to figure out how fancy a hotel will be by looking at its price. But other heuristics don't work so well. And in fact, over the last few decades, cognitive scientists have found a whole bunch of places where we use these basic rules of thumb that consistently lead us astray. So today, I'd like to tell you about two of these, and then I'd like to hypothesize about another one that I think we use all the time and why I think we could do better. The first heuristic I want to talk about is called the availability heuristic by cognitive scientists. If you've seen statistics like this before, chances are that you know the right answers of which things are more common. But I hope you'll agree that our reactions to these dangers don't correspond at all to how likely they are to affect us. How many people do you know who are 1,000 times more worried about car accidents than plane crashes, or 5,000 times as worried about suicide as mass murderers? It seems like when we're thinking about risks like this, we're not considering how likely they are to affect us, we're doing something else. It seems like maybe we're subconsciously answering a different but related question. Maybe something like, how often do I hear about plane crashes, or how easily can I imagine a plane crash? For the second example of a heuristic that we use, I want you to imagine that there are some migrating birds, and on their migration route, there's a risk that they'll drown in pools of oil along the way. And I want you to think about how much you would be willing to donate to save some of these birds. I don't know what the answer to this question is. I don't know what the right number is. But I hope you'll agree that if 2,000 birds are worth something, then 200,000 birds should be worth a great deal more, maybe 100 times as much. The problem is, though, that when you ask groups of people this question, you give each group a number of birds and ask how much they'd be willing to pay, the answers look pretty much the same in each case. So again, this is a really counterintuitive answer that doesn't look like we're answering the original question. It doesn't seem like we figure out how much we value a bird and then multiply that by the relevant number. It looks like, again, we're answering a different but related question. Maybe something like, how sad do I feel when I picture a pool full of birds drowning in oil? So that's two examples of heuristics, or these rough rules of thumb we use all the time, that are really well researched and that pretty consistently give us wrong answers. And I could tell you about plenty more if I had time that we already know about. But instead, I want to talk about a heuristic that I think we use all the time and why I think it's the wrong one. And to illustrate it, I'm going to use 3 examples and talk about how we respond to these situations. First example, someone on the street asks you for money. What do you do? Seems like we have 2 pretty common responses. 1, you give the guy money. 2, you completely ignore him. Why are those the 2 things that we can do? Why is it that if we don't have change on us that day, or if we've decided in advance that we don't want to give our money to homeless people, that we then want to distance ourselves as much as possible from the problem? Why is it that we don't want to smile at him or wish him a nice day? Why does that feel like that would be admitting we've done the wrong thing? Second example is a bit more topical. How do we decide whether to take a bucket of ice-cold water, pour it over our head, put the video on Facebook, and then donate some money to the ALS Foundation? In practice, the way we decide is really simple. We wait and see if a friend nominates us. If they do, we do the challenge. If they don't, we sit tight and hope that no one will. But hang on. How much the ALS Foundation needs donations isn't affected by whether your friend nominates you or not. Neither is how worthy ALS as a disease is of having more attention raised about it, more awareness raised. So why does our willingness to act switch based only on whether our friend tags us in a post? The third example is more general. Do you know that feeling when you just shy away from learning more about something? Maybe you're reading the newspaper about the famine in South Sudan, or maybe there's an expose on television about the conditions in factory farms. And suddenly it's all too awful and you just can't have any more of it and you have to turn it off. Why do we do that? It can't be that we don't care. If we didn't care, then it wouldn't matter whether we learned more or not. But if we do care, then surely the best response is to find out as much as we possibly can, figure out the reasonable way we can help, and then do that thing. Whatever's happening isn't going to stop happening just because we don't find out more about it. It's not going to go away just because we turn off the television. What could make us so scared to look reality in the face? So here again, I think these three examples illustrate another place where we're not really answering the original question. We're not figuring out what's important to us and then fulfilling those values. Instead, again, we seem to be answering a different but related question. Maybe something like, if I don't do this thing, will I still be able to consider myself a good person? Will I still match this idealized, simplified picture in my head of what a good person would do? Because a good person, if the homeless guy really needed money, obviously the good person would give it to him. So if I don't give him money, he must be a druggie or a fraud and I should completely ignore him. And a good person, if their friend nominated them for the ice bucket challenge, of course they'd do it. But until we're nominated, somehow we don't switch over into this am I a good person mode. And it doesn't occur to us that we could donate without being nominated, or whether we should think about doing that. And I think it's the same picture of this idealized, simplified good person that stops us from wanting to find out more about the world around us, or more about bad things that are happening in particular. If I don't know anything about the famine, then I can't be a bad person for not doing anything about it. So the thing is, what this heuristic, this am I a good person heuristic, does well is that it saves us from the overwhelming onslaught of things that are wrong with the world. The world is big, I said, and as we get more connected, we find out more about civil war, human trafficking, environmental degradation. We get more requests to donate to this charity, to advocate for that cause, and we can't cope. We shut ourselves off in an attempt to protect ourselves from having to take responsibility to fix everything that needs to be fixed. But what this heuristic does badly is that it stops us from considering the full range of possibilities that are open to us. The thing is, none of us can fix everything. But once we accept that, once we stop trying to live up to this idealized good person in our heads, we can move on. We can honestly and curiously look for ways that we can affect the world around us and look for the best ways that we can make the world we live in better. And we don't even have to start from scratch. I'll mention one organization of many. GiveWell is part of the growing international community called Effective Altruism. And Effective Altruism is about thinking about not just how to make a difference, but how to make the biggest difference that each of us can. GiveWell puts this into practice by evaluating charities, not based on their administrative costs, but based on the actual impact that they create in the world. So any small donation you give to a charity that GiveWell recommends will make a significant difference in the well-being of someone somewhere else in the world. GiveWell is just one organization. If instead of donations you're interested in the impact of a particular policy or of your career, of your lifestyle, there are organizations working on this too. So what I want you to take away from today is definitely not that you should go home and do the ice bucket challenge or that you should donate to every homeless person that you see. Instead, what I challenge you to do is to try and notice the next time you ask yourself, do I have to do this? Is this what a good person would do? And when you notice that, I want you to stop and let the feeling go. Instead, think about what really is important to you. What do you really value? And then try to investigate how you could achieve that best. Because today, more than any other time in human history, we have not just information about how the world around us is and what places far away are like, we also have the power to affect what's going on in the world around us. I think this heuristic of trying to be a good person stops us from taking those opportunities. And that's why I challenge each of you to stop trying to be a good person. Thank you.